Good morning, everybody. It is 23 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Good morning again. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. This morning, I'm Chamberlain. So,
well, good morning to you. I'm Kayla Magwa.
Yes, indeed. So, I think it's also equally good in Zamfara State at the moment. So, you could take a look at all of these scenarios. So, yeah, moving around the country, we just look for sights and sounds to bring to you all beyond the hustle and bustle of daily life. This could have some soothing effect on some people. That's why sometimes you just have to look at it. Lovely scene.
I know. It's soothing, you know, really. So many people have started loving this morning bit. Really? Where we play this music. It's like 30 seconds of calm, only that we're talking in the midst of it. But the Gusau Dam on your screens right now, Gusau Dam, Zamfara. It holds a reservoir on the Sokoto River, just upstream from Gusau, capital of Zamfara State, supplying water to the neighboring communities. It collapsed in 2006, and it was a tragedy. 40 people died.
Yeah, let's look for the good part.
It's just the good
part. Let's leave out the tragedy.
Okay.
Leave out the tragedy.
500 homes.
As you can see now, it looks beautiful.
Yes, well, it's done. It's fixed.
We'll learn from our mistakes and correct it.
Indeed. Well, you know, the federal government, you know, released 2.4 billion naira for the rehabilitation of this dam, and that rehabilitation has been done. You know, and of course, you know, people have been talking about a lot of other things. I don't want to be the one that brings bad news. Okay, so let's focus on the good part. There's a lot of drama around this dam, but a lovely sight, good work, supplying water to its neighboring communities, and a pride in Zamfara State.
No, if they are unfinished business about huge infrastructure, of course we'll highlight it. If there are white elephant projects, we'll highlight it. If there are things that they're doing that ought not to be done, of course you state it. The essence is to ensure that if public funds are deployed for facilities or infrastructure, it should be done properly in accordance with the set rules, without anyone anywhere diverting funds and then using those projects as what's our special purpose vehicle. You start the project and then they don't finish it, they start another one, they don't finish it. The point they make there is that once they started and not finished, you see the pattern. That's why I have lots of unfinished projects littered all over the country, because the money's, they've gotten what they want and then they're gone. But we cannot allow that to be, and so that's why we turn our searchlights on any such project that does exist. So you know, beyond them saying we borrow to finance projects, so go back and look at those projects that they said they borrowed to finance. How many of them are uncompleted? Does it mean that all the money we borrowed is a waste? Or we still have to pay back those loans, whether or not you complete your projects. So that's the downside. That's why we need to also ensure we follow through with all of those things. Nothing wrong if any government comes and says, you know what, all of these projects that are abandoned, we have to finish them. Oh, that'd be a good idea. I mean, we could also go to where now?
I mean, you do have a very strong point there. And it speaks a lot to how we are as a people.
Oops. I
mean, when we're talking about patriotism, these are some of the things that show that you're a patriot as a leader. If there's something that money is supposed to be used for, use it for it. What's the big deal? I mean, God's going to bless you for doing the right thing, or you just can't wait. You want to be able to. That's just wrong. And posterity.
People don't think that way.
Yeah, posterity judges you. There's a bigger picture, though. Do you understand what I mean, Chamberlain? Like, there's a bigger picture. You can steal as much as you can right now, but it doesn't always mean that you're not going to get away with it.
But if you steal public funds, you have to do the time if you're found guilty.
Yeah.
So I would not advise you to do that.
It'll come back to you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies this morning.
We begin the newspaper this morning with Nigerian News Direct. Nigeria's GDP grows by 3.19% in Q2 of 2024, and that is according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. The Daily Trust is also talking about money. 21 states seek 1.65 trillion naira loans, despite 40% rise in FAC revenues. More on that from the Daily Trust newspaper. Blueprint leads with the economy. Tinubu excited as GDP rises to 3.19% in Q2. Services sector drives non-oil growth. More on that from the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The Daily Times is also talking about the economy. GDP growth. President Tinubu assures a stronger economic performance. Sign of good things to come. Well, we'll find out what you think about that. But the Vanguard takes another turn, talking about education. Outrage as the federal government pegs age for writing WASC at 18 years. The explanation on that from the Vanguard. I wonder what that means for child geniuses, but we'll get the details from the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Nigerian Tribune. The Patriots, step-up move for new Nigeria constitution. They're setting up a 17-man advocacy committee, and Kila is heading that team. On that from the Nigerian Tribune. And The Guardian. Tinubu hits at economic recovery amid inflation and deficit concerns. Most newspapers are looking at the economy this morning, but the Daily Independent is going to the aviation sector. Despite odds, Nigerian airlines get more aircraft to the delight of travelers. Air Peace United set for additional 10 aircrafts. More on that from the Daily Independent. And in business day, stock deals jump 44% on banks recapitalization. More on that from the Business Day newspaper this morning. And those are the newspaper headlines today.
Well, those are the headlines this morning. And of course, everyone is talking about the economy, talking about this second quarter growth. And the president is obviously very excited about this because everyone has been talking about the economy in decline. But you do know that with all of these figures, it's great to see that our economy, there's some kind of growth, but everyone is rubbing their pockets. How does that impact my pockets? But it will, eventually it will. But the communication and the explanation to the Nigerian people as to how this is important to you is one that has to be looked at. But I'm going to take a look at the Vanguard newspaper, and that's because, well, this is a topic that has been going on. We had him on Channels TV's Politics Today, the Minister of Education, Tahir Maman, where he talked about this. But he had talked about it at another event, which I happened to be at. And at the event where he made the statement, there was an uproar in that particular hall. So this is the one where the Vanguard is reporting. Outrage as the federal government pegs age for writing WASC at 18 years. More on that from page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. It will draw back education, says the Nigerian Union of Teachers. We'll go to court, says parents. We'll respond later, says WAEC. We want a meeting of stakeholders, says Konwa. And why are parents pushing their children, says ASU. But there's a lot that's happening. And I think listening to someone, the experts who came on the morning brief, doing this right now will have such a ripple effect on a lot of things. Kids who are already 16 or 15 and they're waiting to write WAEC.
But it says 2025.
Yes, indeed. But the thing is, they have to wait. You have to look at it from the backlog of this. If everyone has just been going, and you now put an implementation, what happens to those who are caught in the crossfire? So even if it's not happening immediately, what about the years behind? What about the kids coming from behind? That's what many experts are complaining about. It has to be something that you look at from, go back. You have to go back to primary school. You have to go back to all of those places and see how you can, create the atmosphere where this can work. But above that, it's also the question about why. Why is this important?
I thought he didn't say that the event that you were.
He did. Well, they shut him down. They were shouting at him while he was speaking. But at the same time, there's also the fact that many people believe, well, according to him, he's just implementing something that has been there before. That's what he said. And he's right.
That's why he's implementing it?
He said, this has been there before. Let's implement this. But the thing is, there's more that has happened. A lot has happened. You didn't enter secondary.
That's odd.
You didn't enter university at 18. I didn't enter university at 18. A lot of people from our generation didn't enter university at 18. And I do remember that conversation came up at the time. Is she too young to go into school? Should she take a year? But at the time, it wasn't so emphasized. We were allowed to continue with our education as long as we had good grades and we were going. But is there more? So the minister does need to have more conversations about this. Is there more? Is there statistics? What are the figures driving this policy? What happens even to child geniuses or to people who are just really brilliant at young age and who write WAEC really early and do very well? Is there something else that we don't understand about youth, young ages below 18, and their ability to do well in school, their ability to graduate and become, successful members of society. We see it around the world, special programs for kids who are younger, much younger than their peers, but doing excellently well. Because you cannot say, because this person is not to this age, we have to jettison the person's grades and make the person wait till they're a certain age. You have to make concessions for those things. I think it's a conversation that the minister has to have a little bit more, on more platforms and explain more.
You said they shut him down.
Yeah, they shut him down
when he tried
to talk at that event. But I'm sure he can come to us. We'll not shut him down. We'll let him talk some more.
Well, for those people, they didn't even want to hear his reason,
they didn't even want to hear him. They were screaming, no, no. And he said, can I explain? No, no. They kept shouting him down. But he can come here and talk more.
Well, if it's just because the policy has been there before and so he wants to implement it, then probably not enough. But of course, the reason why the policy came through at that time, perhaps by extension, he might have subscribed to it if he wants to implement this because it was there before. That's because, there are several other policies that were there before that government is not also implementing because they didn't subscribe to it. So that's logically. But then, so clearly, jury's out on this particular matter.
Yeah. And of course, sorry to cut you there, but just where the parents stand on this. Because for parents who have kids, like it's supposed to be implemented in 2025, you said? We're in 2024. If my kid is 16 right now, and is going to write WIEC next year at 17, they're saying he can't. He has to spend 1 year doing what?
Well, parents can never be on the same page on this matter. It's a social matter, so people can never be on the same page. So, as the paper also highlighted, some persons have said they're going to go to court on this matter. So I think that might be a very good place where the matter will be determined. But I do not know if there will be accelerated hearing on that particular matter if they go to court. We'll see what happens about this one. And then that suggests that if that policy comes into place, it will be across board, nationwide, because education, the way it's handled in the country. But then there are other issues as well, because yes, people have argued what's the rationale behind that. So if it was there before and they're bringing it back now for those reasons they gave at that time, which needs to also be reviewed. If times have changed, if things are moving faster at a different level, do we actually need it? Did they actually take or feel the pulse of the people that they want to implement this for? So it's a democracy and ideas are supposed to contend. So if the people feel that no, this no longer should be the case, then they should listen to them. After all, it's like children. So they want what they want, of course, within the certain scope. But I think ASU also attributed that story, one of the writers there did say, ASU is saying, why are
parents rushing their children?
What does that mean, though?
You can get more on that from page 5 of the Guardian. But just to buttress this point, I'm actually getting messages from parents right now. Someone says my son is 14 years and in SS3, ready to write WIEC and JAM. What will he be waiting for another 4 years to get to university?
Well, look, there are different scenarios, different excuses, different reasons why people may not support this. After all, people write JAM and they don't get it the first time, the second time, so different scenarios. But then in that same education sector, there are other challenges which some people say are bigger problems that they need to address in that education sector. For instance, federal government colleges, unity schools, the reports indicate that the enrollment for those schools are dropping. It used to be parents always wanted to get their children to those schools, but enrollment is dropping because of the scenario, the quality. Even though, the Minister of State did also say that they're having some special focus in that sector, unity schools, to ensure that the price gets back to its prior place. But at the moment, it's dwindling. And then the education sector, we also know, ASU themselves facing that huge back and forth between themselves and government not acceding to the demands. And so it's really, really, what do we use now?
It is.
Very important.
It's important that the conversation is had. More clarity is needed on this matter and the concessions that need to be made for special cases needs to be looked at as well. 99%, some people say, 99% online. They've been saying this, that many private schools don't do the primary 6 system. And I can agree in many ways, because I didn't do primary 6, you know. And then it also affects the admitting age for all the other schools. That means you have to increase the age you enter nursery, primary, so that by the time the person is ready for WAEC, he or she will be 18 years old. So it goes all the way back to the beginning of a person's education journey. So those ages now need to be more curated if that's what he really wants to do. But I'm sure that a lot will happen before then.
Well, they were violating the 6-3-3-4 system at the time they're not doing primary 6.
Well, so the thing is, many kids start going to university start writing JAM from SS1, from SS2. In fact, many parents start to put their kids in all those lessons, you know, just so the kid can get used to writing that level of exam.
So when they write,
but what usually happens is that when they write, many of them do well and gain admission into school, you know. So and this is when someone is in SS1. I remember I wrote my WAEC. I think I wrote JAM in SS2, and that was how I was able to. But I had to wait. I had to wait until I did SS3 before I entered. For primary school, where you're writing WAEC, for many primary schools, they start to. I said SS1. They start to write WAEC from primary school. You know, they start to earlier, just so you can be ready for secondary, just so you can be ready for. So it has to go back to secondary, then you now go back to primary and go back to nursery and see how you're getting these kids into school and checking the ages if that's what he wants to do.
Well, I think it will be interesting to see how that plays out, because I mean, we'd like to hear the arguments. Will they argue, is anything in violation of the policy that exists for education at the time? How will those on the other divide argue? Are they not supposed to lobby the government to ensure that no, actually we need to change this policy because of the times that we're in, so that we can get. So all of those arguments will be interesting. They said they'll go to court, right? So I think that will be one of the places where this matter will be determined, since both parties seem to be digging their heels in on this particular matter. So there you go. All right, that said, we're back in just a moment. Don't go away.
Last week, resident doctors across the country renewed their call for the release of their colleague, Dr. Popoola, who was abducted in Kaduna 8 months ago. They staged peaceful protests with placards calling on the government to step up efforts to secure the release of their colleague. Dissatisfied with the efforts so far, the National Association of Resident Doctors declared a 7-day warning strike.
We did not actually make this decision as a very easy decision, because we know the effect it will have not just on the victims, but also on the Nigerian society. We've done the media engagement, we've done the protests, there's still no yield. Now we are going on this warning strike. We've did a 7-day warning strike, which we started. If the government brings the house, we come back to work. We are happy to take care of the Nigerians. We already chose to stay back, and we are happy to do our jobs. But we are hoping that in 7 days they should be able to do it. But if by 7 days we don't get the response, we will have to proceed on an indefinite strike going forward.
The latest strike is already taking its toll on some public hospitals. At the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital in Bauchi State, the usual operations appear significantly disrupted at the General Outpatient Department. Patients are seen waiting for consultations, with doctors providing only minimal services. The president of the National Association of Resident Doctors, Bauchi Chapter, explains that the doctors are currently in the process of transitioning patient care.
The strike is total. The resident doctors have already joined the strike. However, there is this caveat of yes, because we need to sort out some patients, hand over to appropriate personnel. So you can see residents here and there trying to sort out their patients before they can finally embark on the industrial action.
The situation is the same at the Federal Teaching Hospital in Gombe State and the University of Jos Teaching Hospital, where doctors have set up a committee to monitor compliance.
We don't have any other issues with the government. We are at peace with the government, but we cannot continue to be working while our colleague has been there for over 9 months. So we are at pain. Injury to one is injury to all.
from June is going to be 100% compliance with the meeting. We've also set up a strike monitoring committee. You can see them having meeting right behind me here. They will ensure that everybody actually comply with these directives.
Dr. Popoola was kidnapped in Kaduna State on December 27, 2023, and her colleagues are running out of patience with the security agency's inability to rescue the victim.
Oh yeah, Dr. Billy Abdullahi is here with us. He is the president of NIA. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, clearly the strike is taking its toll across the country, so much as we'll come to that. But this particular scenario, yes, it's 8 months. 8 months. But at the moment, I know that there's been several meetings that you've had with different authorities, and having to wait 8 months, on the one hand, yes, many people will say, okay, but of course you also have the other effects about some of these things. So let's take it from, ever since the strike began, we call that strike, what has the latest development been in terms of the engagements? What are the authorities telling you?
Thank you very, very much. To start with, yes, we know there are consequences to every action. And it's one of the few reasons why we've actually evaluated the situation over and over and over again before we reach this decision. And currently, yes, we've been having engagements with the relevant stakeholders. As at yesterday, we had a meeting outside the state. I wouldn't be able to give the full details of this meeting because of the security implications. Also, we had a meeting with the Minister for State for Health, who re-emphasized the situation, actually informed us that they will be intensifying efforts. They've actually been making efforts before, that they will intensify these efforts as reaching out to the security agencies to ensure the release, and also reaching out to us. But as it stands right now, the process has been a very long one. It started when she was abducted on the 27th of December, and we've followed all due protocols. We have looked at the ramifications of actions. We've tried to see how we can covertly get this result. And when we were not seeing any improvements, we started with an increased media engagement to actually call to the federal government.
When you say improvement, what do you mean by improvement?
Well, if I say improvement, yes, if you noticed from the reports, the abduction was of 3: the husband, the wife, and the nephew. At the point in time, the husband was released. But the wife and the nephew has been in captivity since 27th of December. And when at the point, we did not even get any form of information about if she's alive, if she's dead. Anything was not getting to us. Over time, we had to discuss with the family, because we have to carry the family along in every decision we are making. And when we discussed with the family, later on we found out that she's alive. Now the question is, for how long? What is the current state she's in? The information we have is that she's not so healthy anymore. The health is deteriorating, and we're waiting for her to die before we actually make a move. Hence, but we know if we do a drastic action, there will be impact on the healthcare system. Hence, when we go into the media engagement, we did the media engagement for 2 weeks after we had given the first ultimatum. But when we were not getting any form of response, that was what resulted in the protest that was carried widely across all our centers across the nation. And this protest continued for another 2 weeks before we had to take the painstaking decision to actually embark on this one. It's a 7-day warning strike. We are hoping the federal government will hear us and do the needful.
But these kind of things are usually not straightforward in terms of the approach that security agencies may take. And sometimes, even if they want to take certain steps, they may not tell NIA or yourselves. But in terms of this strike, and you also did say your team considered several options before you went on the strike. Did you think that, or what if this strike puts a lot of pressure on security agencies, and then you take a wrong step and it has consequences? What happens?
Well, thank you very much for this question. It was one major ramification. It's not just about if the security agencies take a wrong step. It's even about what are the other ramifications of this action to even our own workers within Kaduna State. We looked at all of this. But it's 8 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The security agents were informed at the beginning. It's not like as if we've been aloof, we've been quiet about it. After every of our meeting this year, if you look at the communique, look at each of those communiques, our name was boldly written. The situation was spelled out. We've written. The Ministry of Health has written. So, as it stands right now, we are the ones being forced to take a decision, not the security agents. The security agents could have saved all of this if they had just done the job within the 8 months, gotten her out, and then we wouldn't have to make any noise. We waited. We waited, but now if we do not do anything, the other question which we asked is, if we decide not to say, because of fear of the security agents not doing anything, or taking a wrong step, we still go covertly, and then we get to find out that she died while in captivity due to a deteriorating health. Would we honestly have said that we did all we can to save a mother of 5, a doctor that has been serving that community, a situation that has been on for 8 months? Those are the questions that came up during the Congress.
I mean, it's Dr. Ganiat Popoola, that's the registrar, for people who don't know, registrar of ophthalmology at the National Eye Center in Kaduna. And of course, what you're seeking for is for her release and her nephew. You know, I want to be able to get your thoughts on how security agencies have been handling the situation from the fact that you're going on a strike. You obviously believe that they're not doing enough. What do you think should be done? And just so we can understand, you have proof of life. Is there ransom being asked for? What are the details for us to understand?
Well, because of the current discussions we've had, we might not be able to give specific details as to what is being demanded. Yes, there's a demand.
Okay.
And the security agents they've given explanation as to some things that they are currently doing, but the information is coming after some of the actions. And for me, that is where the problem is. The individual has been on for 8 months. Activities are being done, obviously. But what is being done and why is it taking 8 months? Yes, students were abducted in Benue. It didn't take 8 months. The doctor was kidnapped in Anambra. It didn't take 8 months. Kogi State, we've had abductions. It didn't take 8 months. We are afraid that we might get to that point whereby it will replicate the case like in Calabar, where a consultant neurologist, someone that is of great impact to the society, was lost, and as of till today, nobody has heard from. We have a similar case in Kogi. We don't want to wait to get to that point. Yes, there are risks to every action, but at this point in time, 8 months is a long time for us to start thinking of so much of the risk.
What's the point you're trying to make when you talked about Benue and some of those other persons that didn't take 8 months? Why do you think this one is unique?
Well, as it stands right now, those ones, yes, they came with some outcries. And if you look at the Anambra case, there was almost a strike action almost immediately that the case was done. And then he was released. It might not have anything to do with it. It might be that the security agents were proactive and they got a release. But at the same time, maybe our voices are not being heard enough, and that is the reason why our own situation has got been looked into.
What do you want, really? Do you want them to pay? Because you said that they've made demands. Do you want the government to pay these demands? Do you want them to do an airstrike? What do you want to be done?
The job of the federal government is to protect the life and properties of every citizen in Nigeria. We are not going to teach the federal government how to do the job. Our demand is simple, it's straightforward. Let Dr. Popoola return to our family. That is all we're asking for. How they do it, what they do, they're not really asking questions on us. What we are looking for is a response and a free release. That is all we're asking for.
So, at the moment, is it that, because looking at the entire scenario, just trying to understand why the NIA thinks that the security agencies are not doing what they ought to do. You must have been looking at them, looking at what they're saying, the body language. Were they not the same before the husband was released? What changed? What's different?
Well, to be sincere with you, Yes, there were interactions, but what is being achieved is now being delayed. And we have information of a deteriorating health status of both the lady and the nephew. There are some things I shouldn't say online, but when you hear information like you have a colleague of yours, a mother, not being fed for 3 days, it growls up emotions within you. And those are the things that we are hearing. So our fear is that even while they are doing what they are doing, there's still a risk that while in captivity, our life may be lost. And it actually now calls to question, which one gives you more risk? Waiting or crying out for help?
But you've had several meetings as well with Kaduna State government also.
Well, 2 engagements specifically, and yes, they pointed out that they are on it also, but apart from the one of recent 2 weeks ago. Now, we've not had specifically, okay, XYZ is what we want to do. We don't want to ask what they want to do. Maybe they have their own reasons why they don't want to state it, because of the fact that, yes, you can't trust anybody. It's a security situation. But at the same time, they need to understand that the whole weight gives a form of agitation and a form of tension amongst our members. And that is the reason why these decisions are pointed in.
Do you feel like the profession is being specifically targeted? Because if they release the husband and then she and her nephew are there, it means that they might have done some profiling and think, okay, maybe we might get a lot more what we want by keeping her and her nephew there.
Well, I don't have the statistics to back that up. But yes, if you are looking at the state of kidnap, yes, there has been an increase in the state of kidnap for all. I know of the journalists that happen in Kaduna, I know of the justice that happen in Kaduna and all of that. But yes, if you look at, compared to before, the number of the healthcare workers currently being kidnapped, the statistics that we have of people that are currently incarcerated, the ones we are still hearing from, the ones that we did not hear from anymore. Yes, there has been an increase in the attack on healthcare workers. For reasons I'm not yet sure. Like I said, we've not run that statistics, so I cannot make any form of generalized pronouncement.
I mean, as someone that leads that organization, that would be something very worrying to you, to think about the fact that your members could be targeted.
Yes, a major worry, and it's a major worry we've been contending with for a very long time. As it stands right now, we're actually working on developing a protocol that will be the standing rule if any of our members is kidnapped. We already have one for assault within the hospital. We are already working on something for the kidnap, because we need to look at it from this perspective. Is she the first? Is she the only one that has been? How many have been? During the Benue State, the reason why I know about it was that one of the victims was actually our member. So it's a difficult situation across board. And maybe this is a call to action also for security agents, that kidnapping should not be something we see as a routine in this country. And we are hoping that we can stop this epidemic, because right now it's an epidemic within our country. It's a general outbreak that we need to cover as fast as possible.
For the people who may criticize you for punishing Nigerians for what you're going through.
Well, I will totally understand the points from which people will come from. Yes, everybody gets selfish once in a while. Everybody wants their own needs met. And we totally understand this, and that's the reason why it took us this long to make this drastic decision. We have evaluated the consequences, we have looked at it, but I want every Nigerian to ask themselves, this is not an agitation. What we've done in a long time is agitation. We're asking for better welfare, better remuneration. This is a cry for help. Popoola is someone's mother, it's someone's sister, it's someone's family member. It can't be you. Will you be happy if the organization she claims to belong to is quiet when she's incarcerated for 8 months? Our decision has nothing to do with general welfare demands. It's a cry for help for our member that is incarcerated. And what we are calling on Nigerians to do is, every Nigerian should be part of the security apparatus. There are people that know about what is coming up. Maybe this will get us more informants to to expedite the release of Popoola.
How is your action right now? How is it going down with the NMA and with the Ministry of Health?
Well, it's a difficult one because they have to do both. They have to protect what they have, and at the same time, they have to understand where we are going to. The person we are talking about is an employee of the Ministry of Health. He's a member of NIA also. So they've reached out to us also. They are pleading with us to look at other modalities, yes, which is this, but they are not faulting our actions because they know we've gone through a long process.
Do they support your strike action?
Well, I won't use the term support. But at the same time, as it stands right now, the ministry at our meeting acknowledged our grievances, but pleaded that we should see what we can do to share to the source. We are still going to meet with our Congress, explain what has been done so far. We'll give them all the information because so many activities have occurred between the time of the calling of the strike and after. But the most important thing, which is what we are sending to everybody, is we are not fighting anyone. We are calling for the help of everyone to get our member released from captivity.
What is it that, is strike the last option?
Well, strike is in different folds. If you notice, like I said, we are putting a lot of things into consideration when we are making.
But this is nationwide.
Yes,
not
it's a nationwide strike.
Kaduna State.
Yes, it's a nationwide strike. With a 7-day warning strike.
Oh, so that means after 7 days, you go back to the team, you give them feedback, and then they can decide what next.
You have to decide.
You can continue.
All those ones will be left to the decision of the House. But what we are hoping for...
Does it worry NAD when you hear about people in hospitals right now who are not getting health care? Does that worry NAD at all?
It's worrying
because many
NAD.
people who are criticizing you online, you know.
I know.
So
it worries NAD when we find
criticism
out.
that you're getting online is you're punishing like the sick person for what you're going through. As much as people sympathize with what you may with NAD and the need for Dr. Gania to be released and all of these, everyone wants security operatives to up their game and stuff like that. But at the same time, you have a lot of people who are going without health care right now. So how do you get people to sympathize with you when you're punishing them in many ways? At least that's how they portray you online.
Well, it worries NAD when an average Nigerian does not even get the standard health care that is going to get on an average day, whether we're on strike or not. If you look at the things that we put on the platform for agitations before, we talked about an improvement in the facility and all those ones. So it worries us. And for the people that want to feel, okay, yes, you are punishing, it's not punishment. 8 months is what we're talking about. We could have said on 28th of December we're declaring a national indefinite strike. We didn't. January, we didn't. February, we didn't. We have done so much. We've done our protests. We've gone on media engagement. I think it's high time the general populace also looks at it that doctors are humans also. And we are having a difficult time managing a difficult situation. Think about the psychological pain the family is going through. I, as the president of the association, every day having to think about that. I have a member of mine incarcerated in a place going through suffering that I cannot talk about. Brings a form of emotional.
Well, it's going to be tricky and very challenging if you ask people to understand what you're going through, because I've had people call me this morning, they're trying to get care for cancer treatment, brain cancer for that matter, and so they can't this morning because of this. So certainly those are very serious issues. And maybe, for doctors, you're used to people dying. I'm not saying you're killing them, but you're usually in the hospital and you see that. So not everybody can deal with that, as opposed to a professional who handles that every day of their life. So it's something that's why people ask, is strike, must they pull out that option? Because if you try other things, I don't know what else there is, because you see you've done some other things. Besides, if you go on this 7 days warning strike, which is a very serious thing for medical practitioners to go on strike, and she's not released, it means that the authorities are perhaps between the devil and the deep blue sea. We could also suggest that, look, we're doing what we can, but we haven't just been successful.
Well, sir, to quickly put it, point to that? Well, number one, we are not okay to see people die. Yes, we've been trained to control emotions when people die. Because I don't think you will be so okay seeing a doctor that is weeping profusely because another patient has died, and you're having your own patient to come to see that same doctor. That kind of image might actually disturb the patient relative that is bringing a new patient. So yes, we've been trained to control our emotions when people die, but we are not okay. Then number two, like I said, put a lot of things into consideration. Number one, we are not the only doctors within the hospitals. Our consultants are there. Our consultants will do what they can do. Yes, we form the largest form of the tertiary healthcare system. That we are not doubting. And yes, our absence will totally be felt across the nation. We are not doubting that. But we need to put also in perspective that this decision was not made out of the blue. It wasn't something that was sprung up because of an action that happened. A lot of process had gone into this. I don't know what it is. Maybe if someone else can reach out to me and tell us what else we can do to actually get the attention of the federal government to work hard and get her out. If we see Dr. Popoola today, why not? We're happy to see our patients. We're happy to return back. But the Nigerian populace needs to understand also that like them also, we are feeling pains also. We also have issues also, and we need to deal with it as much as possible also.
I'm actually looking at
democracies online.
they're questioning this. There's one person that I can only take one because the others are very, very annoying. They are very angry.
I'm okay with it.
So one person says, how do you juxtapose punishing the sick person with the call to duty? I think it's talking about the duty of care when you swore your oath to be a doctor. It says, how do you juxtapose punishing the sick and your duty of care that you've sworn to?
You see, Nigerians, we can choose things. If you look at that oath, yes, sworn an oath to take care of the patient. But in that oath, it is put there that I have to care for my own health and well-being so that I can give the best kind of health care. Now let's go to the department where Popoola is coming from. Do you feel that the doctors are working in those departments in the best frame of mind? Let's go to my congress, the people that came out of my congress demanding for a lot of things. Do you think they are happy working within the healthcare system? And that's the problem. We want people to work without worrying about the frame of mind with which they are working. What we are doing right now is not to punish Nigerians. And like I've said before, we are doing what we are doing because this is what we have left. We could have as well declared a strike a long time ago. But we looked at the process, we weighed it. We've gone on 2 weeks protest. 2 weeks. And we didn't get that release. And Nigerians saying we should accept fate and give up on the Popoola Daniels.
You know, I said this was very tricky in the opening, and that was partly because I thought, what if government says, look, we know that security agencies have to do a job, and then the other agency could also say, look, the rule is no work, no pay. What if that comes up? You see, we considered all eventualities, and our question was, what is the cost to the life of the doctor? Can we put a price to it? Our association, like I said, critically evaluated. It took us 8 months to get it. So the thing is this. Yes, as you say, you consider all of that. And it comes across as though you're saying, what is the price to that? Yes, life is priceless. It means that if government says no work, no pay, it's a consequence of your action. You might accept it. But are you not opening the door in the future for government to come back and say, okay, if you accept no work, no pay, then accept it whenever you go on strike?
Well, number one, the government should be extremely insensitive. Extremely. I have to put that word. To bring that up now. You know why? Because then the question will...
I'm not talking about them bringing that situation now. I'm talking about this scenario where you have said, yes, if they say no work, no pay, we will accept it.
You see, the truth of it is this. The government has a way of throwing a punishment to a few groups. The question is, what is the punishment to the security agents that we've written to since December and have done nothing? It's easy to attack the crying baby. when you've not seen the mother that gave the baby.
I understand your point.
Now,
but what I'm saying
question
is your strike is not targeted at the security agencies. The strike is targeted at government. Government is broad. So the other part of government can say, well, look, we are not security agencies. We are just here to enforce the rules and the laws. So,
true. But at the same time, then you have to just oppose one thing. If you are going to take it out on us or crying out, what are you doing with those that put us in the position of crying out? Everything, one of the few reasons why it seems like as if we have an issue with government is be fair in all situations. If we protested for 2 weeks, how many of the government officials actually came out? So,
while you were saying that, there are people who will also be watching you, maybe online too, and then they could also say, but you don't want the doctor in captivity to die. Nobody wants that. But patients can die as a result of this.
Well, like I said, we're not the only doctors in the social institutions. And we've evaluated these actions. But the question there is, are we saying because we're afraid patients will die within the hospitals, even when there are other doctors within the hospital, should leave Dr. Popoola to die? That is the strong question we're asking ourselves. And it's the reason why we made the decisions we made. We could have arose from that meeting and said we are going on an indefinite strike. But we felt, okay, let's give room for more negotiation. Let's put in something. Okay, fine, this is an option for us. We don't want to take this option, but please.
Isn't this tantamount to taking the laws into your hands? Because you could actually sue. Have you considered the option, getting the lawyer to ask questions, what legal options are available to us, as opposed to letting people die from hospitals?
Well, the question there is, if we are suing, who are we suing? The security agencies or the bandits? If we are suing the security
agencies,
if we are suing the security agencies, they come and say they are doing their work.
Is that what the lawyer said? Did you consult lawyers?
Not as a lawyer.
That's what they said in the
Not as a lawyer. The question there is, before we go on an industrial action, we don't just make decisions. We consult widely. We look at our situations. We know why we put things in place while there. We do our consultations clearly. And like I said, we did not come up to this epiphany out of the blue because it was something hit. A lot of different places have different protocols. We do not have a protocol yet. Maybe once we have a protocol, then we have a legal backing to say this is what happens if this happens.
Speaking about that protocol, you say you developed one for assault in hospitals.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering. I read about the circumstances under how the family was kidnapped. People will think that they just snatched them on the road or something like that. But it wasn't.
They're picked from the hospital.
I'm like, how? So, what protocol can work against that?
Now, the first thing is, since the beginning of this year, we've actually worked closely, screaming for an increase in the security status of our hospitals. But it wasn't actually against kidnap, it was against assault. Now, nobody can envisage when what will happen. The ruler in Katsina State was picked of recent. I was saying he doesn't have enough security apparatus protecting him. But the question is, what do we do when the protocol is not about just strike action? No. How is the chain of contact? How fast do we expect a response from the chain of contact? What are the decisions we will take as a house if these responses are not being heard? Those are what we are talking about now.
How did you know when she was kidnapped? Was it immediate? How did any idea get it?
The kidnap occurred midnight 27th, that's early hours of 27th.
They went to their house.
They went to their house to pick them from the house. And by the early morning, the local chapter president reached out to me because after it was done, everybody was informed. The hospital management was informed. Local chapter president was informed me. I informed the security agents. Ministry got to know. So it's not like as if it was a hidden discussion. It was open. Everybody knew. So the question was, activities occurred since then. The husband was released.
Just from my education, when the husband was released, what happened?
Well, I will have to say negotiations. Like I said.
So there were negotiations that happened that
yes,
he was
husband was released.
Okay.
With more further demands made after that. Now, like I said before, based on current information and directives, can state some few things in public domain. But yes, negotiations, husband was released, further demands were made, and after these further demands were made, there were a lot of other things that occurred. Like I said, there was even a period of time there was nothing for us. So we are also acting based on fear for the life of our member right now.
So when they got to the house and kidnapped her, there were other people living in that particular area. So have they given the Naira or people in that area any security tips perhaps that will aid your protocols? Because if they could go to that house, they might have gone to the neighbor's house or something.
Yes, the hospital actually developed one or two things which the Central President has related to me. But you know, different terrains will have different peculiarities. So what we are hoping to do is to have a peculiarity that is of national base, something that can be modified at the different local level. And that's what we're working on.
Okay. At the moment, there's a change in the leadership of the DSS and the NIA. Are you optimistic that, who knows, there might be a new direction to all of this?
Well, the information brings both optimism and fear. And why do I say so? Yes, optimism, there's a change. Maybe the direction might be different. But the fear is, being around government for a very long time, you know when there's a change in power, there's a lag in action. And that is the fear. It's one of the few things that you have to think about. If there's a new person in charge, the person will demand that you give him time to understand the terrain.
Well, you're in luck. You're at a point right now where you can literally speak to the new people there.
Exactly.
So let's hear what you have to say to the new NIA DG, to the new DSS boss, so that there won't be that lull before they actually take action on this. What do you need from the new men in office now?
It's the same demands that we've been putting. Avert this crisis in the health sector, protect Dr. Popoola and bring her home safely. It's simple. The demand is one, straightforward. We are not like I told the last person, it's not hurrah after she's brought home. Because there will be a lot of, like I said, there's a deteriorating health. We have to manage that. There are psychological problems. Even there's the PTSD that even the people that were involved in the process will be going through. Kidnap, like I am beginning to understand, has effects on a lot of people, not just the victims alone. And we have to manage all that. But for us to even start the second process, we must conclude that first process. So the only message I have to the DSS, to the NIA, to UNTA is, please, please, and please, we recognize you're doing something, but it's 8 months already. Bring back Dr. Popoola for us, and we are okay to return back to work.
I know that the big decision, that's what you want, ultimately, but there were certain things that were done which made the team, NIA, lose confidence. They were not encouraged anymore. Are you able to highlight one or two of what you saw that made you say, no, I don't think these guys are doing enough?
Well, the reason why we've actually tarried and looked at this, okay, fine, negotiations was done. That one release, maybe something else will come up. Then you had a long period of no information from anybody. And then you come back and then the information you are getting is, I've not been fed in 3 days. It comes to that point whereby you have to look at it that, will this current course of action that we are taking yield the desired results? And what are the effects and the consequences of what you're doing? I wouldn't want to state every other thing we heard because of it's go, and as healthcare workers we shouldn't actually put pain on the audience. But we have a doctor in pain, in captivity. It's a little child, so in pain, captivity. And all we're asking for is their release. That's all. Dr. Dele Abdullahi, President of NIA, thank you for coming on, and
thank you very much.
We do hope that all of this is addressed so that above all else, lives are saved across the board. Or business is this morning on Sunrise Daily. What's up next?
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do just about 30 minutes of business before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We start from the global space. That's where we're starting today. Oil prices, they paused their recent advances, receding on Tuesday after surging more than 7% in the previous 3 sessions on supply concerns prompted by fears of a wider Middle East conflict and the potential shutdown of Libyan oil fields. Now let's look at the numbers. It's not so much, it's not as much as yesterday, but it's red 0.2% for Brent at $81.25. So we noticed that compared to this time yesterday, there's been an increase on the price, going from about $79 to $81.25 there, even though now we see receding off that. WTI also is down 0.4% at $77.14. A bit of increase right there, but still within the field. So major drivers of oil price this morning: oil fields in eastern Libya that account for almost all the country's production will be closed, and production and exports will be halted. This is according to Eastern Bay's administration after a flare-up in tension over the leadership of the central bank in that country. There was no confirmation from the country's internationally recognized government in Tripoli or from the National Oil Corp, which controls the country's oil resources. Also, bearish sentiment for global oil demand could weigh on oil prices, with Chinese demand having an outsized impact. The potential closure of Libya's oil fields would tighten supply and could pull the brakes on declining oil prices, which is what we're beginning to see this morning. And then we go to NAFEX for closing of Naira. For yesterday, we see that it's a big drop. So just when we're about to relax and celebrate a little bit of gain on the Naira, we see that there's a huge drop, 1.69%. That's on NAFEM. So it went from 1,517 Naira to 14 Naira to 1,596 Naira 60 kobo. We see that drop right there, reflecting, and just in one trade. So almost everything that we gained in that Friday session that was positive has been eroded. Now, NAFEX on the other side is almost unchanged. 1,598 Naira 7 kobo is what it opened with, and closed at 1,598 Naira 4 kobo. The good thing is that we see it's still consistent at the levels between 1,500 and 1,600, and we have that stability now for some weeks. Now, we move to a bold move to recover outstanding debts of nearly 5 trillion Naira by the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON. They announced plans to engage international asset tracers to locate and recover assets in key sectors of the economy. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Gbenga Alade, made this known during a media parley in Lagos. By engaging international asset tracers and focusing on key sectors, AMCON aims to recover assets hidden by recalcitrant debtors offshore, including those masqueraded under special purpose vehicles.
AMCON being a government agency requires utmost transparency and integrity. Another area we're concentrating on is oil and gas. We know how important that sector is to Nigeria. AMCON has some oil and gas assets that are being resolved right now that we believe will boost oil output, generate more foreign exchange for the government, and help in the process of economic development as well. We also have telecom. All right, so these are the areas that we are concentrating. Aviation is also there. We want to concentrate in this area because we know that the assets in these areas are big, and once resolved, it will be obvious for every Nigerian to see what AMCON is doing.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what AMCON is doing. Now, good news, yesterday we saw Nigeria's GDP went up 3.19% for the second quarter. That's a rise from 2.98%. There you have it. And the president has been elated about this. I'm sure the central bank and all other government arms would have a lot of statements to do about this. So for the second quarter of July, we see that it's 3.19%. We look at the sectors that drove this. We saw the services sector led the growth by 59% to the economy. There you have it. So there you have the oil sector added 5.70. For the non-oil, we see major contribution from there. Services, 58.76%. Agriculture, 22.61%. Industries added 18.62%. So you notice there that services and agriculture are the major drivers. Industries follows. And we know that even from the CBN business survey, a lot of eyes are looking the way of agriculture, to be able to drive that. But the threat of insecurity, obviously, is a big one for that sector. Now, let's talk about this now and see how sustainable this is with Mr. Ayodele. Mr. Ayodele is the Managing Director of Optimus by AfroInvest. Mr. Abel, good morning and thank you for your time.
Yeah, good morning and thanks for having me.
All right, so, a lot of reactions have been following these numbers. They look impressive, at least compared to where we're coming from. But some people have said it doesn't really capture our reality. I don't know what your findings have been, if these numbers actually capture our reality as it is now.
Okay, thanks. So I think that when we look at it beyond the numbers, that's when we can begin to see there's what we call inclusive growth. So is it inclusive, which means that when you look at the standard of living, you look at the income distribution, which is very important. So it's good that, yes, we're achieving the positive growth rates, and we also want to look at what are those sectors that are contributing. So you spoke about, when you look at the report, the services sector is contributing more. But this sector, when we look at it vis-a-vis ability to employ, while it's doing very well, especially the telecommunications sector. So you look at the half-year result of like MTN Nigeria, Airtel Africa, you would also be able to affirm that this sector is doing well. So in the first half of the year, you see MTN already made about 1.5 trillion naira and over 55% from data. So you would that alluded to the fact that the service sector is supporting. Beyond that, also from the perspective of also the financial sector, they are also doing very well. But these sectors have their limitation in terms of employment. And if we want to have inclusive growth, improved standard of living, these are some of the things that we also need to begin to look out for beyond achieving a positive growth, beyond achieving a growth that is better than the previous quarter.
Okay, so we saw that services, agriculture contributed majorly to this. In fact, the non-oil sector contributed more than 94% of it. Is this a seasonal growth? Is it sustainable from your perspective?
Okay, thanks. I think sustainability will depend on policy that we use to drive this. The first thing we need to note is that when you look at the agri sector, which is crop production, ranked number one on that list, about 20% contribution. Q2 is the harvest, the planting season. So you would also expect that there will be improvement in planting within that space. But if you also look at data around the ability for us to cultivate, so insecurity in some of those major food producing areas is still very prominent. And as such, it means that we would have achieved more if not for the insecurity. So I think that as we curtail insecurity, there's sustainability. We can also grow better when you look at the crop sector. crop production sector. The trade sector too, despite a bit of the volatility within the FX environment, you will see the rate at which custom on a daily basis change their rates to reflect the NAFEM rates. That affects business projection, but the businesses are they're able to weather the storm within that space. But what we would see to ensure sustainability is that there needs to be like a renewed approach to see how, especially like the custom rate that has to do with trade, people importing and exporting, to be able to project. That is also really very, very important. The telecom sector, price has been frozen for a while within that space. What's the probability or what's the roadmap to ensure that the businesses within that space don't also begin to suffer based on the price freeze? So these are some of the things that would ensure and that would sustainability. Inclusive growth is really critical. Creating that enabling environment, infrastructure. These are some of the boosters that I think that if we do this, there's nothing stopping us from growing at 5% per year if we're able to put in those things in place.
Okay, so I think the other issue would be real growth. Beyond the numbers, how much of this is reflecting in the purchasing power and welfare of Nigerians, and how do we translate the numbers to real growth in the life and operations and purchasing power of the people?
Okay, thanks. That's why I said that inclusive growth has to do with income distribution. So is it evenly distributed, which is no. So, and that is why that is part of what we need to also work on. Yes, the economy is growing, but how many Nigerians are actually benefiting from this? Inflation rates at 33.4%, which is really very high. So when you talk in terms of purchasing power, that is really being affected. Customers' wallet continue to be constrained. So there's a need to see how that level playing ground, that infrastructure. So if most things you look at developed clients, when businesses set up, there are some things they don't bother about because there's already a structure on ground, a good road, there's power, you don't have to provide that. So that would boost activities within that space and enable the average Nigerian to also be able to increase the ability to earn. So I totally agree that regarding distribution, that there's still a lot that has to be do with that, so that as we try to grow, is evenly distributed. So it's not just a few people that are accounting for the major activity, major boost that we are doing. So I think lastly, how to also trace that is some of those sectors that would impact across the country are not growing as expected. So you see the telecoms carrying the day. How many staff can they employ? Even if they expand today, it's limited. But you look at the agri sector, you look at the manufacturing sector, these are the sectors that the SMEs operate in that needs the support. So that needs the growth that would evenly be distributed across the country.
All right. So do you see this by the end of third quarter? Do you see building on this? Do you see a retraction?
No, I think that we should be able to sustain at least the 3% levels. But like I mentioned earlier, for us to have that inclusive growth, we need to be able to grow at a level of between 5 to 7%. That will begin and look at the critical sectors that can create jobs. The agri sector, the manufacturing sector, the trade sector. These are those sectors that would have more impact on the economy beyond the services sector that has been the major support.
All right, Mr. Ayodele, thank you so much for your time and your views this morning. Managing Director, Optimus by AfriInvest.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we're staying on this and also see what commodities prices are doing. That's after the break. Just stay with us. welcome back to Watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. It's commodity space now. We're talking to Dr. Ifeoma Nwokolo. She's manager research at financial derivatives company. Dr. Nwokolo, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. So we've seen a decline in inflation. We've seen an increase in GDP. Do we see interest rate cuts in the horizon in Nigeria?
Wow. So we have seen inflation decline. That's true. And coupled with the recent MBS GDP reports, we hope that MPC meeting is going to be holding in September. To me, I would say I see them maintaining rates. I say this because they will want to monitor inflation. You don't just say because inflation has tapered, you cut rates. It's not visible. So what we are likely to see is that they are likely to maintain rates in order to monitor the inflation trend over time. And probably September meeting is likely, okay, they are meeting again in November. So I think between now and the end of 2024, I don't see there's likelihood that they will maintain rates and also monitor the stability of the FX market. Let's not forget that Fed is set to cut rates in September. So cutting rates in September is an advantage to us if our own rate is still high. So you see that we'll have more of diaspora inflow, that is influx of diaspora inflow investments, that is in the form of FPI. So they are likely to maintain rates, to watch the trend over time. So cutting the rate now is not going to be possible. Also coupled with the fact that our real interest rate is in negative form. You cannot have a real interest rate of negative form and you are cutting rates. So it's when we have like a positive real negative interest rate. So cutting rates will be something to at least to consider.
All right, so we'll have to be patient, I see. We're not like the US at this time. Let's put our eye on commodities now, oil. We see that there's a threat to supply coming from Libya, you know, where because of the protests and the anger with the CBN issues, they might that might affect production in the coming days. So we see that Brent is down as well as WTI. What does this mean for Nigeria at this time?
Okay, the increase in Brent is basically because of demand and supply dynamics. You see that there's a shortage in supply and demand is high. So it's going to benefit us because you see that oil is a major foreign inflow to the government. So this is going to not only impact our external reserve, it's also going to have an impact on our FX supply. And the pressure on FX supply will be at least the minimal because we're going to have more supply. And this will also impact our oil sector. Because in the recent time, we have seen that the GDP that came out showed that the oil sector grew by about 10%. So it's a plus for us. It will help us to at least export more oil, make more gains, and also boost our FX market and our reserve.
Yeah, talking about FX, I wonder if you've seen that story that the NNPCL has started exporting gas to China and Japan. I guess that should be good news for us, even though some people are saying, well, are they done with domestic demands? But I mean, that should be one way of getting more FX into the country.
Yeah, it's one way of getting FX to the country, yes. But if we talk about our domestic demand, we also need it here in Nigeria. So the quantity, it depends on the quantity being exported, but I do not see any crime or harm in that, because we need FX inflow right now. in order for Naira to appreciate. So if Naira appreciates, so it is going to be a big plus for us. So it's not going to do any harm to the domestic markets for now. Is a temporary stop anyways, until when the geopolitical tension is calm. I think it's not be a continuous stop.
All right, Dr. Ifeoma Nwokolo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll do the market before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. Welcome back. It's, the last lap of Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We see a little bit of the market numbers from yesterday. I was so glad to have a green market to be reporting at the close of trade yesterday. I hope I have that smile on my face at the close of trade today. So the Osha Index was up 0.07%, sustaining the 96,000 level that was recovered intraday yesterday, and 36 billion naira added to the market cap, so we closed at 55.165 trillion naira. And yes, Boa Food was a major one yesterday. Volume in the green, value in the red, but deals, so we see just 19% increase in volume, 25% increase in the number of deals that took place yesterday. And these are the top trades. Japan Gold contributed. We saw oil and gas closing in the positive. Japan Gold was a major driver to that. FCMB and Veriscap also top trades. But the interesting one yesterday, I believe, was Boa Cement. Was a major one, as well as O&O. O&O also contributed to that counter. So we saw the oil and gas counter close at 0.73%. Insurance was positive, more than 1%. Penny stocks gaining strength, we see. Industrial goods marginally up 0.01%. Just banking is what we saw profit taking on after they recovered the day before. So that's what the market looked like yesterday. The smaller unlisted market yesterday also was very positive. 2.39% increase on the volume. Value 61.7 at 460.49 billion. 55 deals took place. Stocks traded was unchanged at the close of yesterday's trade. As we always do, we'll give you fresh numbers at 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated. You don't want to miss it. I'll be here with Anyete Edet, and we'll take you around the world of business in 55 minutes. For now, let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. We're talking security now and the wider implications. We've got Professor Sulaiman joining us this morning. A.J. Sulaiman is the Director of Research and Production of Ambassadors of Peace and Social Welfare. He's an analyst and also a security consultant. Professor Ahmad Sulaiman is also a lecturer. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on Sunrise Daily, Prof. So, first and foremost, there's a new direction in terms of the leadership of the DSS and the NIA. Naturally, people will expect a new thrust and drive to security matters. They don't want to hear any such thing as business as usual. So they want to see something change. So from that perspective, I mean, for those who have that kind of expectation, what would your expectations be?
Morning, Chamberlain.
Yes, go ahead.
I think we expect a lot from DSS with the changes. If you look at the organization itself, how it started to where it is, and if you look at where DG have left it. DSS came about originally from 1976, after the assassination of General Murtala Muhammad. As at then, Nigeria had a lot of challenges in its security architecture. There was a porous gap. So after the assassination of Murtala Muhammad, Decree number 27 was enacted to set about the NSO, which now becomes the DSS, after the amendment by decree brought in by General Babangida a few decades after. Now, from that point to this point, if you look at DSS, it has, compared to all other organizations, it has developed very well. It has advanced and it has played a lot of roles. The only problem is that it is an organization that acts from background. So the public, they don't screen, they don't see the activities compared to police and other segments. So if you look at from that perspective, if you look
just
at
a minute, Prof.
the
Having said that, are you able to assess their performance? Since you say, look, you hardly see what they do. So how are you able to put your expectations and your stake for performance?
I look at their development from regime. There were challenges during the First Republic, during the Shishinkatian era, where they were entirely critiqued as being just an arm of the executive. So, but if you look at the intervention of later military decrees, hello?
Go ahead, Prof.
If you look at intervention, they have advanced and modified, adapted themselves to military era. And when the Third Republic now came about, if you look at the activities and the changes and the professional changes in the activities, you will see that they have, especially if you look at the regime of Vichy, they have developed what I would call sense of professionalism and reject their public relations with professionals, which now gives it a more humane appearance to the public. And from the background, if you compare it with all other organizations, they've been able to adapt themselves and modify to Nigerian security threats and challenges that is always changing, ever changing. So in the sense of adaptability to our security challenges, I would score them high. In the sense of especially how they've rejigged their public accountability by rejigging their internal relations through bringing in professionals like Dr. Peter Afunanya, who is heading the organization now, you can see that they have rendered themselves accountable to the public. If you see their interaction in most of their operation with the public, and they have withdrawn much more into the background as DSS is supposed to be. Now, if you also look at the challenging forces of nation building, that is the forces of separation, the IPOP challenges, the farmer herders challenges. These are challenges that hit at the root of national coexistence. In that perspective, if you have information as to achievements and their operations, you see that they've achieved a lot of success in that direction. So I know a lot of people will look at Nigerian security challenges from the point of view of violent crimes we have now. So this is where we expect the new director from his background, we expect the new DG to now move the DSS higher and advance it beyond where Vichy have left.
Well,
considering his background and the steps,
since you keep tabs, just a minute, Prof. Since you keep tabs in that sector, in terms of what's going on and how they're coordinating themselves, did you at any point in time think that there should be a change for this to happen?
Well, as for their operations, I didn't expect. But as far my knowledge with Nigerian governance, and when new leaders come, normally they come with a framework of coming up with new heads of rejigging their association to bring people they are comfortable with. Yes, you should expect that in Nigeria, not just in Tinubu regime, not just in Buhari regime. It has developed into a convention in Nigeria. But in terms of their operations, I am very comfortable with the way they are moving and adapting to our security challenges. Only that some of the challenges are beyond their mandate, because operational activities counter open conflicts, some of them are beyond their confines. So you cannot take up failures and gaps in military operations against insecurity or police and take it upon them. But from the background of acting beyond the screen and facing the challenges of our national coexistence, any reasonable observer will score them high. If you look at the challenges we have faced, the IPOC challenges, Nigeria at any time in our decades of growing, there have always been forces trying to tear us apart, not just in the north, not just in the west, not just in the east. It just depends on the convenience of the moment. So if you look at all those challenges, from the background, DSS have been tackling most of these challenges from the background. I think I would score them high. And the present DG, if you look at his background, he has worked in violent states. He has worked in Kogi. He has worked in Niger Delta, I think Calabar, Enugu, and all that. So I think with this background, I expect him to use this background of experience in violent crimes and all that to national platform so that we'll deal with our incessant violence and kidnapping especially in the north, in Katsina, Sokoto, Kaduna, which is now the cause of our national challenges.
Yeah.
Another doctrinal, when you're talking about security, you're talking about three levels: operational level, tactical level, and doctrinal level. From the doctrinal level, Nigeria had serious problem of the doctrine, our approach to security. So as far back as about 20 years ago, I think getting to 20 years now, in the first daily post of 1st June 2004, I wrote Terrorism in Nigeria, Matters Arising, where I saw the situation, the need for us to overhaul the priority of our securities instead of focusing on regime security.
All right,
so
Prof.
these things have never been occurred, have never been brought to. Buhari tried to bring it to overhaul and focus Nigerian security.
Professor Mohammed, I said Professor Mohammed, yes. Professor Suleiman, I want to be able to, we'll get into that shortly. But we talked about the DSS. I want us to be able to talk about the new NIA boss, Ambassador Mohammed, and of course with his level of experience heading foreign missions. He was head of the Nigerian mission in Libya. For those who don't know, he's done a lot of work: North Korea, Pakistan, Sudan, and even the State House here in Abuja. Years in the foreign service. What's he going to? Because based on that article that you wrote, you talked about how we can rejig the security, the security workings in the country. What do you think Ambassador Mohammed will be bringing to the table in that regard?
Between internal security, that is DSS, and his organization, because our security challenges are not just exclusive to our Nigerian dimension. It is related to counter-surveillance. It is related to foreign intelligence. It is related to outside foreign players, external players, international, not just in Africa. So we expect this new direction should lay a new platform where Nigerian security challenges should be beyond these internal factors. Yes, granted, we have economic, financial, social frustrations, but there are also external factors in influences upon our insecurity. We are living in a global world where every country is interested in what is happening everywhere in the world now, and every country try to act based on its own national interest, even if this national interest goes against the national interest of the area of its interest. And these are the things that have been worsening our Boko Haram fight. These are the things that have been worsening our banditry and insecurity. Don't forget the kind of gold mines we have in the areas of banditry now, Zamfara, KB, Aziz. So we believe there are a lot of external players, especially if you look at what is happening. Even in the recent protests, you can see foreign flags being raised. So we expect strength in NIA will also give a lot of, so it will also positively influence our success in internal security, which is the focus from the law of DSS, because DSS is brought up by the law to focus on internal security, counterintelligence, intelligence, and such order as may be given to it by the president. So we expect this refocusing, if they are able to work closely hand in hand with the NSA, we expect that there is going to be a lot of improvement. Because currently, as it is, it's like our NSA, is our security operation is relying so much on force. And these things cannot be, it's not just force that brings an end to it. It never brings an everlasting peace. You know, the security have two approaches, either by superior fire or the power of surveillance. So we believe this foreign and internal surveillance will bring up our sense of security.
In Nigeria, you know, the recent stories, the emir of Gobir, I hope I got that right, you know, who was killed in kidnappers then. And then, of course, all these other kidnappings and banditry, documentaries have been written about the situation of things, especially in the north when it comes to kidnapping. As these new men, and just to note, we just had the president of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, you know, talking about their colleague who is still in captivity after 8 months. With these new men on board, what do you think their priority areas should be? They have the bosses those agencies had in the past were criticized for not being very proactive. You know, saying, oh, we always hear about things happening afterwards. We keep hearing, you know, they got that criticism from a lot of Nigerians. And like you said, because their work, especially for DSS, their work is mostly in the background. Most people don't really see a lot of the things that happen. Should that change with the new men on board right now? Should they change their tactics? And what areas of focus should they be looking at with all these kidnap situations going on in the country?
And expand their intelligence. In the sense that, you know, we have knowledge gap in Nigerian leadership, not just this regime, not just democracy brings all sorts of people into leadership. And so you have a lot of knowledge gap. If you have a very strong DSS that provides timely information and try to update the intelligence of the executive, especially the president, it will sensitize him to a lot of priorities. This is one. Secondly, I will also want him to also, like Bichi started, I will also want him to also improve on that, on listening. You know, in Bichi regime, professionals and consultants like us always have an open door to influence policies, advise them, and I hope he will also take that, because these issues are beyond crime as it is. These issues are going to the root of our existence. Take the crimes you've said. Have you looked at the background of the Gobir Emir? Do you know he is an Hausa state? Do you know that there is something peculiar about Gobir compared to all other emirs around the region? Do you know that there are a lot of undertones of undercurrencies arising out of that incidents beyond even the crime itself? Now, this is common to all our security challenges. You have a lot of undercurrency and challenges beyond things as they are. So you need a proactive agency that sees beyond the crime, that sees beyond the challenges, that look at the currencies and tendencies, so that we'll be nipping them in the before they develop into a substantive mayhem. Most of our crime and challenges emit signals. It's only that we miss the signals. If you look at, did my write-up in 2004, terrorism in Nigeria, I've given a focus of something to happen in 10 or 15 years. And those things happen across the areas of Plateau, Kaduna. I've highlighted in my write-up and Kano on terrorism. And also the issue of around that year, I wrote an article, 200 Years of Fulani Jihad, and the tendencies of not having restlessness because of not giving attention to the youth. And now today we are facing that. About 6 months ago, in this studio, I advised that if we don't pay attention to the suffering and general suffering happening in Nigeria, it will lead to unrest. Just less than 1 year, we are today facing what I forecasted 6 months in this studio. So most of our security challenges emit signals that you can always read. So we need a proactive agency that will pick up these signals, pin the attention of executives and whoever is responsible to intervene, so that there will be timely intervention before it develops into a mayhem. So, and if you look at, yes.
Okay, so for what you've seen, just a minute, Professor Sulaiman. So let's take you back to that protest which you spoke about, the End Bad Governance protest. From what you saw, did it come across to you as though the intelligence agencies were able to put their finger in it? Because to some extent, many were of the opinion that they were a little bit surprised as to how is it that people were flying flags of other countries, who were those behind it. It appeared as though they dropped the ball. Was that your reading as well?
My reading is that they may be aware of these tendencies, but I think so much attention have not been paid to look at the background. You know, a lot of negative forces came into play in the protest. We have our own local challenges here, especially if you take Kano, for instance. We have local political challenges. You have a lot of other factors that have taken care. You know, even the protesters have been, in Kano, have been insisting that the violence and the burning in high courts and most of other buildings were brought about by hired folks that took over. So there are a lot of information going around about local factors and policies that came into play and hijacked. So if you look at those factors, I think a proactive agency would have foreseen all those factors and nipped them in the bud. But we are living in a situation where, even though DSS have tried so much to where it is this point, but we need so much more to do to be able to detach our security agencies from political and governmental influences. This is, maybe they may know, maybe there have been some things that hindered proactive, active intervention. But
in other words,
that
you're saying here now that it is political interference that is hampering or strengthening intelligence gathering in the country. Is that what you're saying?
Intelligence gathering is different from acting upon intelligence. It's one thing to know, it's another to be prepared for it. So what I'm saying is that there are factors that even to an ordinary observer, things... Hello, are you with me?
We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you, go ahead.
If you look at Kano Emirates puzzle, we now have 2 emirs in Kano, and this, nobody would, no matter how the deniers from all the two sides, we know there are a lot of political intrigue cases and intrigues in this, focusing on 2027. And what do you call it, the protest too, you know, these political players have also had a lot of influence on how it played out, especially in Kano. So these are local forces. And then don't forget that we are now living in a frustrated time where people, northern Nigerians are becoming disenchanted with the system. This is also in itself another force. Because there are people who wish anything, let anything even happen, but they are given of their fed up with the system. This is another dimension. And these people will do whatever they can do to vent out their frustration against the system.
So tell us,
it is all these factors.
No, shed a little more light on that. I mean, people want to know, why are they fed up with the system? Because, I mean, we read somewhere that is it that they're not in power and then they're fed up with the system?
Chamberlain, I've said it time and again in this regime, in this studio. I've said it in NTA, I've said it in AIT, that our institutions, our leaders are not allowing our institutions to work. People are not seeing the value of democracy. People are suffering. Interventions are being stopped on the way. Agencies that have been created to bring relief to people are not functioning well. When they centralize this to states, I said it in this studio that these things are not reaching to the proper persons. So people don't get anything in hospital. They buy their medicines or go and get their grasses to drink.
No. What I'm asking is this. Why do we always hear, for instance, now, if now we're here, just you also underscoring that Northern Nigeria is fed up with the system. But last term, when the President Buhari was there, we didn't hear this as much. Then if it changes down to the south, we'll hear some in the south say, oh, Southern Nigeria is fed up with the system. So are these politicians playing games with Nigerians? Why do these narratives always come up when governments seem to change?
The way I look at it, Chamberlain, is a build-up. It's like, you know, in English, it's the last straw that breaks the back of the camel. So people have, it's a build-up. People have been expecting so much. They kept on pumping so much until Buhari's regime went out, and then this regime came in, and they were expecting. And then the build-up of these 8 years of frustration compared, added to what we are saying now, brought people to the peak of frustration. I'm telling you, this is not tribal. This is not regional. This is real. People are suffering, and this suffering is more focused in the north. It is in the north that you have economic frustration now. A lot of people cannot go to their farm. Some of them will have to pay taxes to banditries in Niger and Zamfara and Kebbi before they are allowed to go. In some areas of Borno State where Boko Haram still have influence. And even when they yield their fruits, they have to give out something. And then if you look at the north compared to the southern part of Nigeria was more stationed to receive this shock. But you are talking about crude survivors, people who survive from normal farming, people who survive from day-to-day activities. All these hindrances have hip hop emphasized itself more in the north. So it is more the north that is at the receiving end of most of our failures, economic failures, financial failures, failures of agricultural intervention, and all these failures and insecurity. And therefore, it is from the north that you hear the loudest resistance. But I don't think these have anything to do with tribe or religion, because this is a government that receives the highest vote from the north. And
is it about this government now?
It's not about the government. That is what I'm trying to. Yes, it's about the government because the government failed.
But
it's not about the government because it's not that they hate the government. It's just that they hate the situation they find themselves in, suffering, in insecurity.
But you spoke about build up in the last 8 years.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, that it's been building up for the last 8 years. It means what?
It's bigger.
The last government didn't do as much to address those concerns.
Yes. And then,
so,
you know, in the
those voices didn't come up at that time, did it?
Well, they have been coming up, but, you know, the things are not getting worse as it is. As at that time, traditional rulers and religions still play a lot of role in calming people down. But you are not talking of a situation where the average youth in northern states now is now becoming disenchanted with even the religious leaders.
I'm just looking at the time, so we're out of time. So I think maybe part of what many might have gotten from what you're saying now, if people are disenchanted with the system or the structure of governance, maybe it's just about time then. I mean, incidentally, the patriots are going about now trying to get narratives and opinion for the people in terms of what do we need to change structurally. So who knows? It might just be about time that we address the structure based on economic zones. Maybe if we approach it that way, regions will focus on the economics and play less of politics. Because this is what politics does. It just keep playing politics blindly and not getting development economically. So who knows? Could be right, could be wrong. But Prof, we're out of time. We'll have to thank you. It's a matter that we'll expand on subsequently. But we do thank you for your time this morning, Professor Ahmed Sulaiman.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a look at some messages coming through now. I don't know which one you got, Kayla, but there's a long message from Adeolu Ojo here. I don't know if you got that one, but let's take. I think we'll start with the feed. Festus Akinboyawa says, while Nigeria's resident doctors must agitate for the release of their colleagues from the claws of kidnappers, strike action may not be the best way to achieve it, especially when it's their patients that will suffer the consequences. They should call off the strike and work with security agencies to ensure the safe release of their colleagues.
So we have this one here from Imonoka Enakena. Insofar as we sympathize with NARD, the National Association, I said Nigerian earlier, National Association of Resident Doctors, on the upsurge in kidnappings of their colleagues, it behooves on the government of the day to protect the lives of the citizens against any and every ongoing violence and insecurity within her territory.
This is from Tom Egbele. He says, a professional group of personnel working assiduously day and night to save lives must not be allowed to be murderously pummeled and pulverized into state of extinction. I support the strike till government acts to stop the blatant debauchery against them and assure their safety.
Very, very important message.
What is another one?
Oh, which one?
I don't know if we're going to. Let's see. Adeolu Ojo.
Oh, Adeolu's long message.
Well, he says about age limit of admission, which is part of what you were also talking about. He says, look, a lot of people are blaming government, as usual, for not streamlining age for writing common entrance and getting admission to secondary schools. What we are deliberately ignoring is the fact that we have a rash of private schools who do not base admissions on the government-coordinated common entrance examinations. All my children never wrote the government common entrance examinations because they attended private schools all through. My first son wrote entrance examinations in a school in primary 5 at age 8. He was offered admission, but I insisted he had to go through primary 6 at 9. He wrote the entrance exam again and passed. But I felt he was too young, and so I made him repeat primary 6 in another school until he was 10 before allowing him to proceed to secondary school. You see, our greatest problem is impatience, he says. Dr. Adeolu, thank you for your message. All that is it today as well as the program. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain. Goodbye.
Have a great day ahead. I'm Kayla Magwa.